I'm going to talk broadly about where we are as a research industry in terms of tech. And I want to start off with a brief recent history of the quantitative research world from a behavioral scientist's perspective. From my perspective, it started around 1938 with the central limit theorem. This was Gallup, and it was political polling, right? We learned way back then that we could use a subsample of people and get a representative view of what the population would say when we were polling. So we didn't have to poll 1 million people. We could get the same results within a margin of error by just representing that population with a subsample of, say, like 1,000 people, right? And that subsample, that predicted an election outcome, and oh my gosh, we were off and running. But note that the central limit theorem doesn't guarantee that what you're measuring is an accurate measure of what you're trying to capture. It doesn't necessarily mean that when you get a representative sample of opinions that is going to reflect the behavior of the people that you're trying to understand. But we were so enamored with the central limit theorem, we started applying it to everything, right? So like, what's your opinion of the current president's performance? Do you think it's good or bad? How important is it to you that your car has airbags in it? What is, right? Stated importance. Let's get a representative sample of that opinion. Do you agree or disagree that banning Muslim immigrants is a good policy? Sylvia and I did that study together back in 2015 around the presidential election, right? That's opinion polling, not necessarily representative of how people truly feel. But when we started to apply it, then the industry started to catch on, right? You remember the debate way back when about derived versus stated importance? There was a big debate, a lot of publications on this. Do we rely on what people state is most important to them, or do we derive what's most important to them by looking at their behaviors and systematically manipulating variables so we can see what's influencing their choices? Well, you know which won that debate. Derived importance won that debate, right? Derived importance was more accurate in predicting behavior than stated importance. And that was really a foundation that came along with choice modeling. Choice-based conjoint, we don't have to ask importance, we can just manipulate variables, and we can understand by observing what people choose. This is real progression in quantitative research. We started to move away from opinions and started to look at behaviors and representative samples of behaviors. Bill Clinton caught on to this in 1992. He was enamored with it as well, behavioral science, and he was just doing A/B testing. Instead of asking people, is this a good policy? Is this a good message? Am I delivering it in an effective way? Simply splitting your sample and seeing what the difference in the opinions were by your split sample was better evidence of what was going to be effective. Early application of A/B testing. And A/B testing really took hold in the 2000s. Part of what spurred that was a qualitative input into the quantitative timeline. Jerry Zaltman, 2003, How Customers Think. There's a great stat in that book where he shows a study, I think it was on appliances, where only 18% of people who reported that they were very or extremely likely to buy an appliance actually went and bought the appliance, right? And so that was like the downfall of the Likert scale. Right? How likely are you to do this? And think of that applied to the likelihood of purchase intent. We're still using that as an industry, and it's terrible. It's a terrible measure. What happened next? Online sampling. Rudy was a pioneer in that with Greenfield Online. That completely changed the landscape. Now it wasn't phones and mail. We could do this online. And as more people got online, we had representative samples of consumers online. That led to e-commerce A/B testing. Well, let's just put 2 ideas into the wild and see which one wins. We'll go with the winner. First of all, how expensive is that? I'd love everybody here to think about the waste in A/B testing. How wasteful is that? You got 2 ideas. Let's go send it out into the world, and this one gets more sales, so we'll go with that one. Well, what happened to all the sales you lost over here? I can tell you it's more expensive than scientific pre-research that would have given you that answer to begin with. Right? How wasteful is that? We can change that. That's a sidebar. In 2009, we found that emotion is actually quantifiable. There's a talk just coming up next about the measurement of emotion. I'm really thrilled to hear that. This is new. That used to be the realm of qualitative research. It was something that was fleeting. We couldn't put our arms around it. We knew it was important emotion, but we couldn't quantify it. Research started to come out to say, no, we can actually quantify emotional response. And if you integrate quantities of emotion into your conscious choice models, you're more accurate in predicting behavior. Go figure. In the early 2010s, implicit measures from the behavioral sciences moved from the laptop to mobile. And then, of course, in 2016, do we need any more evidence that opinion polling isn't the most accurate predictor of future behavior? The polls didn't say that Trump was going to win, but he won. The big blue wall, it fell. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Hillary was outside of the margin of error in all of those polls as a winner, and she didn't. Because what people say isn't necessarily a reflection of what they're going to do. There's more. ResTech, right? ResTech platforms start to rise. We see Zappy in 2013 wins the inaugural Insight Innovation Award for automating research and putting it into a platform where anyone can go and buy research from their own products as well as other providers in the industry. In 2020, well, 2020 happens, right? What happens in 2020? We think the world's going to end. But for research, 2021 represented the greatest amount of investment in the market research and insights industry in history. And where did it go? Into platforms, into research technology. Billions of dollars. Behavioral science insights platforms emerge with AI. And now, 2023, end of 22, 23, we've got ChatGPT, we got OpenAI, and where is the future of AI? You're going to hear about some of that today. That's my recent brief history of quantitative research in our industry. And what it tells me is that these types of methods, where you're pointing at faces or asking people explicit questions on a Likert scale, these are very limited in their ability to give us insight into how people actually feel and why they feel that way to predict behavior. So do we have to go to methods that are not scaled, that are not quantitative to answer that? We don't have to anymore, because what we have now in the industry is behavioral science automated in insights platforms that can measure human emotion, the cognition that precedes that emotion, and can pinpoint moments of marketing that are related to actual scientific outcomes and predictions of behavior. This is a new world, and it doesn't replace researchers. It empowers us. It empowers insights professionals to work on the more important questions, not the minutia, not the mundane, but rather the insights and the implications and the business impact that we can have with our insights. Here's an example of one, pulled from the behavioral science literature. This is an implicit emotional association testing tool. This tool, and there are many of them out there, measures what's happening in the consumer's non-conscious mind without asking any questions. Simple priming and response time method, looking at millisecond response times following the exposure to a brand. It tells us how you feel about that brand. When you might not be willing or able to admit it in a survey, we can understand how you truly feel. We don't have to rely on opinions. That's behavioral science data collected in quantitative representative samples. Here's another one. Anybody use facial action coding? This is an automated technique for measuring the systematic movement of the muscles in the face, 43 different muscles in your face that you have for expressing emotion and social communication. The way in which you move the muscles in your face is an indication of how you're feeling and what you're trying to express out to an audience. And now that this technique, which originally was hand-coded, developed early by Paul Ekman, now that it's been automated and put in online survey tools, we can get representative samples of human emotion, moment by moment, while people are consuming our media. Put those two things together and you have automated behavioral science to tell you how people are feeling and why. I know Rudy said this is apolitical, but let's start with MAGA. What do you think? What a better way to illustrate emotion and its influence on behavior than Donald Trump. Let's watch this ad first. Anybody familiar with Pudding Fingers?
Ron DeSantis loves sticking his fingers where they don't belong. And we're not just talking about pudding. Ron DeSantis loves sticking his fingers where they don't belong. And we're not just talking about pudding. DeSantis has his dirty fingers all over senior entitlements, like cutting Medicare, slashing Social Security, even raising our retirement age. Tell Ron DeSantis to keep his pudding fingers off our money. Oh, and somebody get this man a spoon.
Make America Great Again, Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Oh my goodness, I don't care how your political affiliations, but isn't that disgusting? Man, that's an attack ad, right? Are attack ads effective? Yeah, they are. Look at this. This is a pre-post design. So measuring the implicit associations towards DeSantis before we show that ad, showing the ad, measuring the movement of the muscles on the face while people watch that ad, a lot of disgust expressed during that ad, and then measuring the attitudes towards DeSantis after watching that ad. So what do you have there? You've got an experimental design, no opinions asked here. Is this ad effective or not? Actually just scientific evidence of the change in attitude towards DeSantis following exposure to the ad. We also have, here it is, here's the data. Before, 100 on the scale is neutral. Above 100 positive, below 100 negative. Before exposure, people don't think DeSantis is very disgusting. It's an 86.2. After exposure, they think he's more disgusting. DeSantis is more disgusting. Would you say that in a survey? He's less presidential. He's less intelligent. He's more scary. I didn't ask any opinions there, just measured change in implicit attitudes pre and post watching that ad. But the beauty of automated behavioral science and research tech is when you combine these methods, now we can understand why the attack ad is effective. So the solid line there, that's Republicans and independents. That's their overall emotional journey while they watch this ad. The dotted line is the emotional journey of people who feel DeSantis is more disgusting after viewing. Do you follow me? You've got quantitative data on the same people. So that measures change in attitude, and then you can go back and cut your emotional journey data by the change in attitude. And let's see what that reveals for us.
Ron DeSantis loves sticking his fingers where they don't belong. And we're not just talking about pudding. DeSantis has his dirty fingers all over senior entitlements, like cutting Medicare, slashing Social Security, even raising our retirement age. Tell Ron DeSantis to keep his pudding fingers off our money. Oh, and somebody get this man a spoon.
Make America Great Again, Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
It's just fascinating, right? You see a negative emotional response among people who feel DeSantis is more disgusting when he sticks his fingers in the pudding, right? But you also see it when the narrator says cutting Medicare, right? I thought that was a Democrat position, right? We don't cut Medicare, right? Very effective messaging. And we understand the critical moments in that message that are actually driving down the attitudes towards DeSantis. That study was run in 24 hours. That's automated behavioral science. No opinions asked, just scientific evidence of an outcome and insight into why it's effective. Let's do one that's a little bit more positive and less political. This is from Nike. We'll watch the ad first.
For all of these simple things, a flower is born. If she looks within, she finds beauty and power. We'll all be bouncing and tell the people everywhere that the flower has come. Light up the sky with your prayers of gladness and joys for the darkness.
Nike does great advertising, very often very inspirational. The funny thing about advertising, there's a poll of 25,000 people done probably about 6-7 years ago, and the question was asked, does advertising influence your decisions? And this is an opinion poll. 95% of people said, no, I'm not affected by advertising. Is that true? How do you think people feel about Nike after watching that ad? Yeah, more motivating. How about this one? More inclusive. Right? Let's focus in on that second one. So this is just change in attitudes towards Nike about being inclusive after watching that ad. If we isolate the people who feel that Nike is more inclusive after watching that ad, we can look at their emotional journey and see which moments are triggering that increase in inclusivity. If you're Nike, and you're taking the 60 and you want to cut it to a 15 or a 30, and you still want to have that boost in inclusivity, you need to know the moments that are triggering that change in attitude. Boom. Great setup. The negative drop's not a bad thing here. That's intentional negative emotion. Right here. Look at the emotional journey of people who feel Nike is more inclusive. They're having a stronger emotional response to the message. So first of all, if you have DEI as an objective for your organization and you see that lift in inclusivity with that advertisement, you know that every media dollar you're spending is having a positive impact on your brand within the realm of DEI. It's actually good for the brand and sales too, separate data on that as well. But I want to ask one more provocative question. What if it's not inclusivity toward the brand that you're interested in? What if reducing implicit bias towards groups of people was actually a KPI for your advertising? What if we could treat advertising like we treat any other diagnostic test, amassing scientific evidence of the efficacy? So now, instead of brands as primes, this is the origination of implicit methods. This is implicit bias towards groups of people, now applied back to business. What if that's your dependent variable? What if that's the outcome you're interested in? We'll do one more. Here's the NFL. Inspire change.
Football is a microcosm of America. All races, religions, living, playing, competing, side by side. I pray we dedicate ourselves to be the best team we can be. Let's choose to be for one another, to fulfill the promise of one nation, to be part of the solution, be part of the change, to try harder, show up, dive in, and stay at it.
Oh, can we touch for a second? Be us for a second. No matter what I give it to, my love looks better on you.
Second spot by the NFL when they were donating $250 million to end systemic racism. In this study, we didn't measure change in attitudes towards the NFL. We measured change in attitudes towards groups of people. This data can be difficult to look at. The blue bars represent US general population implicit bias towards groups of people. Just like with the brands. Black women, 77.9, black men, 72.6. Automatic negative implicit association. That's difficult to present, but we live here, right? Right? This isn't a surprise. It's difficult to see. It's not a surprise. The green bars represent the change in implicit attitude towards the group of people after a single viewing of that 60-second NFL spot. Now it's momentary, right? And you might look at the decline in the positive towards white people as, oh, we don't want to reduce positive associations towards white people. No, that's not the point here. The lack of implicit bias towards race means equality. It means 100 across the scale, like no implicit preference one way or another. Repeated exposure to that reinforces the equality. When you get that effect on a single exposure to a 60-second ad, blast that thing. Put your media behind it. If that's your real objective, if you're trying to reduce implicit bias towards groups of people, if you're trying to be inclusive, if you're trying to support diversity, that's an outcome measure. And that's automated behavioral science. You're not going to get that from representative opinion polling. Does that ad make you feel better toward black people? Ask it in the survey. Are you going to get that kind of data? No, but now you've got representative samples of real scientific evidence of emotional reactions, and in this case, towards people, not just brands. The trillion-dollar advertising industry can be empowered with this kind of technology. That's the power of automation in our industry. We can put these tools in the hands of every advertiser, every marketer, and have a global impact on inclusivity towards people. Thank you for participating in the research interview today. Now, I want to end with something a little bit more provocative, and it's this bot.
For participating in our research interview today. To begin, can you please tell me a bit about yourself, such as your age, occupation, and any hobbies or interests that you have?
I'm 50 years old, I run my own business, and I like to go running and swimming.
It's great to hear that you're active and have your own business. Considering your lifestyle and the fact that you engage in outdoor activities like running and swimming, how important is skincare to you? And what specific concerns do you have when it comes to taking care of your skin?
Yeah, I worry that it gets quite dry. When I go running, I sweat quite a lot. It's quite salty. When I go swimming, like the chlorine in the pool dries out my skin. I guess I'm also a bit worried about sun damage in the summer.
Thank you for sharing your concerns.
This is a new chatbot. That's Mike Stevens. I don't know if you know Mike Stevens. You know Mike? Yeah, that's Mike Stevens. Doing an interview with a chatbot. Any qualies in the audience? I love qualies. Hi. Is it okay that I say qualies? My question for you is not whether that makes you scared about your job. My question really is, what does that kind of technology potentially empower you to do? Let's go back to, you got an answer. Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to spend your time on pre-screening and those general questions that don't have the depth to them. So you can use your skill set on more in-depth on ratio rather than standard interviewing that's scripted.
Yeah, you can spend your time on the things that are going to provide more value, the more in-depth use of your skills and knowledge. Yeah, there's more to that too. So let me wrap. Few key takeaways. The central limit theorem does not make samples of opinions accurate predictors of future behavior. We all take that away. Brands can authentically enter the age of inclusivity by measuring the impact of communications on biases towards groups of people. And the future of our industry is not PowerPoint decks delivered via email. It's automated behavioral science delivered within immersive emotional intelligence platforms powered by AI. So what does that mean for our jobs? Insights jobs in the golden age of research tech just got more interesting. Combining science with advanced artificial emotional intelligence tools. That's a new job. Integration of multiple data streams of behavioral intelligence, not opinion intelligence. Inspirational storytelling from deeper analyses of outputs. And that must be the end. There we go. All right, thank you for the time.